We're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast on a Thursday, 10:30 on the Eastern Seaboard. Today's January 9th, 2025. Glad to have you with us here. rumble.com/amradpod. Make sure you smash the thumbs up. Give us a follow if you listen to the podcast. Definitely subscribe so you can get our new episodes every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Gonna get into it today. Have a hybrid term, TM, trademarking it. I'm calling it Fear-ious. We're going to have a ping pong back and forth about the latest news stories that we're seeing that are going to make you really angry or they intended to make you really scared. And they're going to ask the question of whether or not it's all bread and circuses or just the last little bit of fuel we need to get to that 0.2 of the marathon. We've gone 26 miles. We've got to go an extra 0.2. We need a little extra fuel to get us through there. And is this going to give us the reminder of the sorts of actions that need to be taken? So I'm going to be talking about the fact that the coronavirus could be a good thing, according to the media, that Joe Biden wants to ban water heaters or something, and that the Attorney General of the United States says that the good men and women of the FBI had the utmost integrity when they locked up more than 1,500 people for exercising their First Amendment rights. All that, so much more. Excited to get to it today. Have Garrett here with me. GOB Actual is his nom de plume online. Make sure you give him a follow. He says he's shadow banned. I have no reason to doubt his integrity because he no longer works for the FBI. So I know he has some. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Ready to go. Freezing cold down in Florida. I cannot imagine how bad it is in the diminished state of Wisconsin.
Even colder here, I'm sure. But Steve, I'm trying to find a couple more silver linings in my life, and one of them is if the water isn't quite frozen, that's outside sitting in the garage, it's really, really, really cold. So, and I like cold water, so at least I have that. I guess I don't know, but
First world problems, Garrett. First
indeed,
world
sir,
problems. My
indeed.
water isn't quite frozen. I don't deal with that. We drink out of the hose here if we need to, and it'll turn your teeth yellow if you do it too much. It's because there's so much building and runoff in Florida because everyone's moving here because it's awesome. Newsflash, folks in California, and I say this with knowing that what's going on out there with the fires, and there's a lot of labeling or terminology, and people are saying like, "Look, you voted for these policies, you deserve it." My heart goes out for the people that are there, and that's not what you want to see. If you do want better policies in your life, and you seek the sunshine and the beaches, something similar to that, Florida's full. Sorry, there's nothing left.
Move to Manitoba.
Or Greenland. All right. And while we're talking about going to outside places, I want to begin with the current Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who, if memory serves, was an advisor to Joe Biden in 2020. He's the guy that called up the CIA, Mike Morrell, the deputy director, and said, "Hey, I need a talking point for tonight's debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump." So the CIA spun up a 51 Spies Who Lies letter within 6 hours. That Antony Blinken, he is milking this thing till the very end. So Antony Blinken decided that he wants to go on another world traveling tour in the final days here at the helm of the Department of State down at Foggy Bottom. This is the actual announcement. Secretary Blinken is traveling to the Republic of Korea, which is South Korea, Japan, France, Italy, and the Holy See. On Friday, the State Department announced that Blinken would begin a 5-day trip to 3 countries on Saturday, during which he aims to reaffirm the U.S. alliances. I don't know why he's necessary, seeing as how he's out of a job in a couple of weeks. But in South Korea, Antony Blinken and senior government officials are going to discuss, quote, critical cooperation. So they want to meet together and talk about how they meet together and get along together so they can talk about how they're getting along together. The department stated that Blinken will hold talks with senior Japanese government officials during his visit to Tokyo to review the tremendous progress that the U.S.-Japan alliance has made over the past few years. So they want to get together and talk about how they've gotten together, and it's been really good. And lastly, Antony Blinken will travel to France to discuss with senior French officials challenges in Europe. NFI is what we go with after that, Garrett. So is
No
he just getting
further
like a paid vacation at this point?
Yeah, that's what's happening here. As you were going, even just when you started explaining his trips and what was going on, I was thinking, especially for our male listeners, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you right now. If you haven't already this morning, when was the last time you thought about Rome? Because it should be right now. Because that's what this is. This is a dying Roman Empire where a senator, some type of nobleman, in this case, an appointed a guy who was pointed to a position, he's just going to get to go on vacation to countries that he liked. Because I'm sure he's been to those countries before, and if he hasn't, he probably thought, "Man, where did I really want to go while I was here? I really thought I was going to get 8 years of this, but I only got 4. Oh, Japan, France, those sound nice, and just throw South Korea in there because I like the dim sum, and then it'll look like it's a real trip." But also, what governing are you doing at this point? It's January 9th. You got 11 days. So you aren't ramping things up. You're channeling them down, and the next group of quote unquote governors is coming in. So why are you wasting taxpayer dollars to go on vacation?
Because government exists to line my own pockets. It's a very Aaron Burr way of looking at things. I do want to comment though about our relationship with Japan, which we completely effed over. I mean, look, we've gone in the last now,
Not
so
the
it's
whole
8.
nuking thing, right?
No, I mean, we got beyond that. I mean, like their attempted invasion and incursion onto our sovereign territory and declaration of war that ended resulting in us firebombing their entire country and a couple of nukes. But as far as our allies in the Far East, Japan's pretty good. I think that there's a close relationship there. We effed it up with the Biden administration because we sent Rahm Emanuel over there. Remember the former mayor of Chicago, the chief advisor, chief of staff to Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
He went over there and started like banging the drum on LGBTQAI plus rainbow kamikaze stuff. And Japan is not down to clown with that. And they basically were like, we're done dealing with you, United States.
Mm.
So there's going to be some repairing that needs to happen. I don't think Antony Blinken's going to be first and foremost there. He's really more concerned about making sure they empty the entire coffers, send it directly to Ukraine. I would like to see an investigation into Antony Blinken's connections to Ukraine because he is a stalwart advocate for printing all the money and sending it all to Ukraine.
That's true. He really has been stalwart in that regard from day one. And one of the more vocal ones about it. I guess maybe that comes with his position, but man, I think it goes back to what you said. Government exists to line my pockets. That's what the vast majority, I think, especially of upper echelon people in government think. Well, look at Joe Biden. Look at what he has done for himself and his family over the last 45 years, roughly.
He bragged about being the poorest guy in Congress, and now he's got what, 3 houses?
Not a joke, as he would say.
Guess what? By the
Come
way,
on, man.
Joe Biden. And I mean, look, as far as our concerns about the conflict in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine, I don't think it's particularly within our interests, but we've been told repeatedly in the last, I mean, what, this started in 2022? It's coming up on 3 years that this was a threat to liberty and democracy and peace at home throughout the world. We had to send all necessary resources there, totally not laundering it back to ourselves. This is
Their
just not a
president.
scam. But you would think, in light of the fact that the democracy was at threat, our sacred and sanctified democracy could be at its end if Vladimir Putin were to take, I don't know, the Donbass region in Ukraine, that maybe our military installations might have been in a heightened awareness state, but they weren't.
Oh, they
It
weren't back
actually
then.
required the most recent New Orleans terrorist attack. So we're going back from getting you furious to trying to make you fearful. We'll ping pong back to that one. I saw this one. This guy, what's his name? His name's Steve Herman.
Is it weird that thus far I'm just furious. I haven't been afraid
I'm
yet.
getting angry at the attempts to make us fearful.
Yes.
Whatever it is, it's rage porn, fear porn. It's just not productive. But maybe it's helping to fill up your cup. Maybe the oh boil meter will boil over and affect actual productive change. This guy, Steve Herman, he's a journalist. He was talking about military installations and readiness. And this is a note. notice that went out. It's a little hard to read for those who are watching, but basically it's bringing up the high alert for urgent security update in response to the recent New Orleans and Las Vegas attacks. I don't know if you could characterize Las Vegas as an attack, but we don't know all the details yet. The bullet points, though, that are worth mentioning, and maybe you can shed some light on them if these are irregular requirements. Okay, Garrett. Number one, 100% ID checks to enter the military installation.
In my time, that was common.
Oh,
Everybody showed their ID. So I like how they're listing that first, unless that's changed in the last 12 years, which I doubt. But I, I love how they list that first. Okay, we're going to heighten security. Everybody needs to show us their ID. Yeah, when you go through a gate on any military installation, you got to show them your ID. And
but
if you
isn't
don't,
that a threat to democracy, having to have a picture ID?
uh, yeah, I would say it is.
They're going to be doing random inspections at
Okay,
people going through the gate. I mean, you went in
so
more than I have. I've
yeah,
gone into military gates to do training and things like that for the FBI. I never got randomly inspected. I have to presume, though, that does happen.
it does happen. There's like a little pull off area on many of the gates where you pull off to the right, and the MPs or whoever they'll randomly. I've been subject to this because the way they would do random searches when I was a young infantryman was Friday night and Saturday night when young guys are coming back onto post. They'd have you pull off and search your car, and thankfully we were typically smart enough to have a DD, and that's what they're looking for. They're looking for guys who are underage and drinking and having contraband. Because think of this: even a guy who lives on post and is an infantryman in the army, he can't have a firearm on post unless it's registered with like the provost marshal. And then I think you have to even store. You can't even store it at your house, or if you live on base housing, and you definitely can't store it at the barracks. So guys wouldn't do that because that's tyranny, and they're like, I deal with guns all day. But the point remains is, yes, there's already the potential for random inspections of vehicles. Here's what I would like to know, though. Okay, say you're going to be doing more random inspections of vehicles. What criteria? You call it random. We all should assume it's not. You should have some list of criteria that you're using to try to determine if some sort of terrorist is trying to get on your base. And if you're not doing that and it is just random, that's stupid and nothing else. Because it wasn't so long ago when those two guys were posing as Amazon delivery dudes and tried to get onto the Quantico Marine Corps base. So the I don't know what they're called, the Marine Corps, whatever the MP version of Marines are, stopped them, or maybe it was even contracted security. I'm not quite sure, but um why were you able to stop those guys from getting on the base? What triggers were there that set the gate guard off to be like, we shouldn't let this vehicle through? And then now, if there truly is reason for a heightened threat awareness, why are you just doing random? Shouldn't you have some sort of criteria to stop an actual terrorist, or is this just like the TSA? Just search everybody. Oh, don't worry, they're going to slip things through, and we're going to have a 95% failure rate, but we're going to get more money every year. I don't know. Now, see, I'm just furious now, Steve. That's what's happening over here.
It just seems like kind of a nothing burger, like not going to be any deviation from the way you normally do things. Maybe you'll do a few more inspections, random inspections. I did say something about like the suspension of the trusted traveler program, which I guess would be like if you lived on post and you vouch for the guy in the vehicle with you. But for the most part, it just seems like we need to put out something that says red alert to get people scared, or to at least create the illusion that they're really on some other heightened footing because they're really paying attention to what's going on, but they're just basically restating what the protocols are that they generally follow. So it seems like a whole lot of nothing, right?
A whole lot of nothing, even with this trusted traveler program. So typically, if you have a military ID and you're coming on to post and you have someone who doesn't have a military ID, you show them your military ID and that person's state ID or whatever, whatever ID, typically driver's license. And it, it wouldn't matter where they were from, if I think of when I was in Kentucky before Heidi had her military spouse ID, because we got it there at Fort Campbell. She just had her Wisconsin driver's license. So when I'd go on post with her, I would give them both my ID and her ID. And so that what are they gonna do now? They're gonna make people, if they have a guest that they want to bring on to post, they're gonna make them what? Do a background check, go to the visitor center and have them sign in there, because that's what we had to do initially. We went into the visitor center, gave them her ID. I think they just basically copied it and then said, "Yeah, okay, you can go on to post now." So and also, how many service members are colluding with the next uh New Orleans ISIS pledger? Are there some who are being radicalized? Maybe. I don't know. But it's not like we have a Nadal Hassan every couple days. So I just, yeah, it's the fear porn, man. And it is actually making me quite angry.
All right, I think I've gotten up to the point. You know where like the steam starts coming off that boiling pot, where you can just sense the bubbles are starting to. The watch pot never boils. Oh, it does. I make enough ramen. You watch, it boils. All right, here's one, and it affects multiple things that are important to you and to me. A pro-life
Oh, Steve.
protester was
You
detained
know what, Steve?
for
Damn you, all right?
protesting. I'm waiting on the DOJ to come in with a FACE Act violation, but this is actually local tyranny. The reporting came from Live Action, which is Lila Rose's group, and the pro-life activist, his name is Zach Knotts. He was detained and charged with disorderly conduct by Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio Police Department last year, right before the New Year's. He was protesting outside of an abortion clinic, and according to the citation he received from Knotts, quote, he did knowingly generate noise by means of a megaphone, causing inconvenience and alarm to passerby at the women's clinic. I have a video. We can just watch it for a
Oh
minute to
boy.
get a sense of the alarm that it was caused here, Garrett. And then we can get into the First Amendment and how it's not really for your, I don't know, convenience or uh, comfort.
Christ for all of you. I want it for you, but I can't force you to take it. He won't force you to take it. But you will have to stand before a holy God one day and answer for it. I love you enough to tell you the truth. Jesus Christ came to save sinners like you.
All right, sir. You're calling with us. Walk this way, please.
Why?
Not asking questions, sir.
Well, this is my right to leave. Why?
Okay. Because right now you're being detained.
Disorderly conduct. I have a statute in my pocket. This is not disorderly conduct.
Sir, if you'd like to discuss it, we can go up there.
Okay, sure.
Under arrest.
Okay. So under threat of arrest for disorderly conduct, even though it's not disorderly conduct.
We'll just pause it there.
Oh, Steve.
So you send it. I've got my thoughts.
This what I really think of most here is the doctrine of the lesser magistrate. The police are as low of a magistrate as you can get, and their job is to uphold what is true, what is just, what is right, what is moral, what is legal. They may not like or agree with this Zach guy's speech. That doesn't mean he doesn't get to say it, and it actually means that they have to uphold his right to say it. The people going to the murder mill don't have to like it. That doesn't mean that they can call the police and say there's somebody here saying things I don't like, and then the police come and do selective enforcement. That's what this is. This is selective enforcement. And because he was standing on the sidewalk, if you weren't watching, he was just over the curb that delineates the parking lot from the sidewalk. So in every American community that I know of, the sidewalk is public property. So you can stand there and you can exercise your whatever civil liberty you want, typically the First Amendment, which is speech. If you didn't see it, he had a megaphone in his arm. So maybe they told him he can't use the megaphone because of some type of noise ordinance or something to that effect. I think we played a clip from a different abortion mill regarding that in the past, where they were using what they called amplified sound device, and the police were like, "You can't do that." But the guy, just like this guy, you heard him say he had the disorderly conduct statute in his pocket. Just like this guy, that other abortion mill issue was in Arizona, and they said, "Hey, well, the statute says that you have to have a some type of calibrated meter to actually measure if I'm making too much noise," which, of course, the police didn't have and weren't planning on using to actually make sure if he could or couldn't use that sound device. Now, noise ordinances differ from community to community. Maybe in this case, the guy said, best for me not to use the amplified sound device. So he didn't. So he's just projecting with his vocal cords, no amplification, and he's yelling from the sidewalk in the direction of the abortion mill that he doesn't want them to do what they're about to do, that they need to seek Christ. And he's right about both of those things. And then the police come and remove him under threat of arrest for disorderly conduct. In Wisconsin, there's a couple different.
He actually got arrested. The citation is an arrest.
Yeah, that's crazy. And it's in Wisconsin, the disorderly conduct is like being excessively loud, vulgar. I don't know. There's like 4 or 5 other things you get. It's the catch-all statute. But some dude standing there, he's not swearing. And what's excessively loud? I mean, it's the middle of the day. It's not like he's
It looks like a fairly well-trafficked road, right?
yeah.
I mean,
The
there was
the
traffic
traffic's
going
as
by.
loud as him. So, oh man, I would like. I hope they fight that. It's so maddening though because you have government, which we've been over before. You have government which is instituted by God to punish evil and reward good. And so when you have government that's doing the opposite of that, I don't know, man. They've forsaken their divine authority, and they they should be resisted as much as possible in this regard. Now, the guy is compliant to some degree and walks away with them, but you're telling us he ends up getting a citation anyways.
This is lazy from the police officer standpoint. I understand you want the path of least resistance. It's if somebody's engaged in something that's perfectly legal and it's causing static within the community and the police get summoned, yes, you can go up to them and say, "Hey, look, I know what you're doing is completely legal. It's making somebody uncomfortable. Would you mind not doing that?" But it's up to them because they're not engaged in an illegal activity. They can say, "No, I want to continue doing it." The proper thing to do, and you're not a lawyer if you're a police officer, but you do work within the law. It's incumbent on the officer to explain to the people at that baby kill mill that he has a right to be there. And I'm sorry if that makes you uncomfortable, but in this country, we uphold the rule of law. The rule of law says he has a right to do that. So I'm sorry that you feel uncomfortable with that, but that's not within our purview here. And you could even see it in the way that that officer with the sunglasses was interacting with the protester. He kind of just walked up and was like, "Hey, come on over here with me."
Mhm.
Excuse me? You don't have authority to actually move me
Right.
from a public area. That's just somebody who's actually accustomed to having the uniform be the presentation of force of government and having somebody comply against what they are actually lawfully allowed to do, which to me is engage in that. And look, there could be somebody who goes outside of a church and starts screaming pro-abortion things, and then same thing needed to be said to the churchgoers, that just being there and feeling uncomfortable is not something that the First Amendment, entitles you to be to avoid that discomfort. And I mean, I think we've lost that, which is unfortunate for us. And unfortunately, it always seems to go one way, right? I mean,
Yes.
if there is someone who is walking through the aisles of a church, disrupting the services in violation of the freedom of access to clinical entrances, which is strange that that's in there, that's never prosecuted, right? And I think that those days needs to change. If anything, this Fear-ious hybrid, let that be a reminder that when those things happen, those people go to jail, right?
Yep.
And there needs to be an appetite for that. No longer are we going to just turn the other cheek.
Hmm.
That is one of the most misinterpreted
It absolutely is.
ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and
Uh, y-
Go ahead.
I think you brought it to us. Wasn't it something like 95% of Face Act under Biden w- was against uh
92%.
92%?
The
92%.
most prosecutions of any presidential administration since the law passed, and he's only been president for 4 years.
That's insane. I mean, people, seriously, if you think about that, think of how insane that is. And tell me that is not Stasi esque. Because if you don't know, the Stasi, the secret police, they existed solely to protect the party, and so that's what they did, and by arresting whom? Their political enemies. If 92%, because think of all of the things that go into the LGBTQ kamikaze, and or what do you call it, Steve? The
LGBTQAI plus rainbow kamikaze.
the think of everything that goes into that. So the regime, they hate if you are counter to that in any way. And man, if you talk about God's truth and then you go and profess it on the street corner in the public square, like the prophet Isaiah says we should be doing, because he alludes to how truth has fallen in the public square, because people got too afraid to go and speak the truth openly in the public. So if you go do that, like Zach here in the video we played, well, then you're going to get marched off. You're going to get walked away in handcuffs. Or if you ramp it up, because typically what happens, I know it's from working it, because there was an abortion mill in Wichita, and they would call the police, and then they would call the FBI, and they'd say, well, the police aren't doing anything. And then you'd say, okay, well, what are the details? You say, well, that's not a FACE Act violation, because even the people at the abortion mill are looking for the FACE Act violation. Well, then you get a regime who says, yeah, well, that, of course, we have the law on the books, let's use it, even though it says it's supposed to go both ways. We're going to use it 92% in one way. And that's not Stasi? That's not secret police to you? Okay.
Let's pivot to another one, and let's ping pong now to the fear. And this is because there's this collusion, this gross relationship between the media, legacy media, and government tyrants who want to seize more power. And the best way to do that is through fear, we've found, and fear over public health, which is why, to me, even this is sort of off topic, the Make America Healthy Again was one of the best political moves, but also probably one of the most obvious, if you think about it, because they were able to mobilize and control an entire global population through public health. They got people scared about public health. Why wouldn't you do that to gain some political advantage through the health sphere here, right? So we talked about it last time, how the quademic is coming back, right? And then they want to make sure that they get you nice and scared. But there's the other big one out there. They tried to have it, and they're not coming off it, and that's the bird flu. The bird flu is back, and now it's come for you. Did you not put the blood over the top of your house to avoid the death of your firstborn?
We need some
Because
chicken
otherwise,
blood
and
over
by that I mean it's your Vax card. Okay, this comes from CNN. CNN Health. America's first bird flu death is
Dun, dun,
reported
dun.
in Louisiana. The person who was over 65 and reportedly had underlying medical conditions was hospitalized with the flu after exposure to a backyard flock of birds and to wild birds. Louisiana health officials said that their investigation found no other human cases linked to the patient's infection. You actually have to read the article to get this information, but you see the headline that says America's first bird flu death is an old person who was in bad health who just
Yeah.
happened to see some pigeons at some point in their
Yeah,
backyard.
and then buried in there, well, there's no other. Don't worry, just read the headline.
They go back and forth too. They said since 2003, so 22 years, there have been 900 human bird flu infections reported globally.
Wait. Since what year?
In the last 22 years, 2003.
Since what year? 2003?
Yeah, the year I graduated from high school.
900 deaths worldwide.
No. 900 infections.
900 okay. This is the biggest nothing burger. Well, I would say
Well,
year,
look,
but we're
in
only
their
9
defense,
days.
half of those people died, which means it has a death rate of 50%. Or
Nobody gets it.
because severe cases are more likely to be reported than mild ones,
Then
because
then
you
those
have what
people-
Garrett has now, which you think is like, oh, it's a cold, but it's actually the bird flu.
Oh no, I got the bird flu. I ate too much chicken noodle soup.
Oh no, you ate the chicken?
I ate the whole chicken.
You're
What's
patient zero in
Patient
Wisconsin.
zero. I went to the local restaurant. I ordered 2 whole chickens and 5 loaves of bread for you Blues Brothers fans out there. I think I got that quote right.
Well
Movie
done.
reference. We haven't had a movie reference yet.
I try my best to get them in there. The Terminator has been on my mind a lot lately.
Not
As-
good to get terminated. Come
I
on,
mean,
Steve.
and that's actually unintentional, but I'll use it because I'm a professional podcaster at this point, unpaid
Unpaid.
indefinitely.
Yes.
The Terminator, the FBI, which is Skynet, and is interested in only going after its main threat, people who wanted to unplug Skynet or people who wanted to bring the FBI to heel, i.e., small government-minded people who are labeled as domestic terrorists because they're anti-government, anti-authority, violent extremists, or white supremacists who somehow were white supremacists because they didn't vote for one white guy over another white guy in 2020. And then we bring us to the worst day in the history of the country, which is worse than September 11th, worse than Pearl Harbor, worse than the Civil War, and that was January 6, 2021, the insurrection. But the FBI and the Department of Justice are very proud of the work they did. The good men and women of the Department of Justice are saying that they had unrelenting integrity. This coming
Oh.
from the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, otherwise known as an 87-year-old woman when he speaks. Garland claims unrelenting integrity and protection of civil rights in the 1,583 January 6th arrests that have been made. These are some of the quotes from Attorney General Garland. Staff have sought to hold accountable those criminally responsible for the January 6th attack on our democracy with unrelenting integrity. They've conducted themselves in a manner that adheres to the rule of law and honors our obligation to protect the civil rights and civil liberties of everyone in this country. In a statement released by the DOJ, Attorney General Garland lamented the, quote, 5 officers who lost their lives in the line of duty as a result of the January 6th, 2021.
Well, that's a lie.
He did not name the officers because no police officers died on January 6th. None died even in relation to the events of January 6th. We had Brian Sicknick, who had a medical condition, but they cremated him before we could actually get a proper investigation into that. And the other 4 officers committed suicide like 6 or 7 months later, but they said that it was J6, so they could give them that posthumous award. Utmost integrity, though.
Yes, the utmost integrity, Steve, and to uphold civil rights and to hold those criminally responsible accountable. Okay, yeah, check. Okay, I get that part because as we've been clear about before, there were some people, a very small number, very small, who did things that were criminal in nature. But they are acting like all the thousands of people that the DOJ continues to go after are those people. They're not. Those people are few and far between. And then I don't know if people listening have seen what Kyle Seraphin put out on social media recently, but a little reel of an upcoming interview with friend of the show, friend of the Suspendable himself, Steve Baker, Jay Sixer. But he has been working on a story for a few years that that he released, and now he's going on with Kyle to talk in depth about it, of other things that may have been in play causing people to act a fool. And then you have Merrick Garland coming out and saying that these people killed police officers. That's not true. That's a lie. That didn't happen. Steve and I were both accused of believing the conspiracy theory by Democrat staff attorneys when we were deposed a couple years ago. But it's not true. Those officers didn't die in the line of duty. Nobody killed them on January 6th. The only person who was killed was Ashley Babbitt. Well, and then what's her name?
Roseanne
Roseanne
Boylan.
Boylan, and maybe one other victim who was a J6er. I'll be clear. It's not like I followed J6 like Steve Baker has. I don't know all the ins and outs, all the details. I know enough though to know that Brian Sicknick was alive after they said he was dead, and then he didn't die till days later, and then these guys are committing suicide. But now you have Merrick Garland out here gaslighting everybody, telling you that, oh, it's like Christopher Wray when he says doing the right thing in the right way for the right reasons. Are you though? With your 92% face act against Christians, with J6 being heavy-handed against your political enemy, because that's why you exist. You exist to go after your political enemy. And quite frankly, Steve, as the days tick by, I wonder more and more about our former colleagues because I know there are people who have a similar like-mindedness to us because by and large, even still, at least the agent class is guys like us. It's guys who were cops, conservative, relatively speaking, because that's typically throughout our history who goes into law enforcement. I'm not saying everybody, and I'm not saying you have to be that, but for the people who see the things we saw and have stayed there now for 3 more years, when is enough enough? Do you think Cash Patel is going to be your savior? He's not. Do you think Donald Trump is going to be your savior? He's not. Do you think Pam Bondi will save you? She won't. It's up to you. They're not going to be able to police all 40,000 people in the agency. So some of this crap is going to continue. Maybe it will be muffled to some degree while Donald Trump is the president. But what happens when Kamala Harris runs in 2028 or Gavin Newsom or whoever, and then JD Vance loses? And maybe JD Vance won't lose. Maybe we'll have 4, 8, 12, 16 good years. I don't know. But these people aren't your savior. And if you're in law enforcement and you see this type of crap, what are you doing about it?
If you are investigating a case and you look to who the president is, like what political party is in charge of the White House or the Congress or whatever, and you use that as your lodestar for determining whether or not you're going to investigate First Amendment protected activity, or if maybe we're potentially violating due process rights, you know, like the fact that we're keeping people indefinitely detained when that's not the regular practice, when we're bringing people into a star chamber to be convicted of crimes that ordinarily aren't even brought up by local prosecutors, even outside of the realm of January 6th. I mean, take like Mark Houck, for example, that FACE Act violation that he had to take all the way to court, right? That we could potentially be in violation of cruel and unusual punishment. Again, keeping people indefinitely detained for years on end with superseding indictments, manipulating those processes. If you're looking at all that and saying, huh, that might be a violation of civil liberties, some civil rights stuff. I mean, sending the SWAT team up to arrest somebody when they pledged that they would be cooperative with you the last time you talked to them, which was 18 months ago, that might be violative of their rights. It might be an unnecessary risk, but we have a Democrat president. So I'm just not going to consider that. I think that's the problem. Your answer to what the problem is the mirror on your bathroom wall that you probably don't look in very often because deep down you know it. And if you don't know it, you're just a communist, and Cash Patel should come in and fire you, as he should every single person that's been hired in the last year because they're all probationary and you don't need a cause to fire them. I
You know, that
suggested that one yesterday.
that's also a good point
You
is
came in the last year, you knew you joined the American Stasi.
yeah, I don't know if I've talked about this before, but uh when Ray announced his resignation, it was kind of like a glad hand. Oh, thank you. Thank you for being the
Standing
director.
ovation they gave him.
So at that same event, I guess they put out that of current agents, 47% have been hired under Christopher Wray's tenure. I would say you got to fire 47% of the agents then. And and I I, I say that just a little tongue in cheek because I'm sure there are some decent apples in the bunch, but by and large you got to and actually maybe not, because this was the point I was coming back to, is what you said about the communists in the ranks, and they are there, people. They are there. The acting security head of security or whatever her title was when I got walked out was a purple haired lib. They said, "Well, Garrett, how do you know she's lib?" Well, I don't, other than observing her. So, do you think she had anything but glee walking somebody like me out of there?
Of
Even not
course.
knowing the details, or maybe she did. I don't know. That would make it worse. But
Or the special agent in charge, Sherry Yonks, who was doing the Mona Lisa smile as she suspended me, because uh, in the months prior to that is when she put the LGBTQAI plus Rainbow Kamikaze flag display within the field office at Jacksonville. And after the Dobbs Jackson decision, she sent out a division wide email talking about how women lost their rights. And then when I said we should probably connect with crisis pregnancy centers after the Dobbs decision was leaked because they could be at risk, I was told that no, we're not focusing on them. We need to really protect the abortion clinics.
Yes, so that's your Stasi. That's the Stasi right there. I don't know why the Stasi is so much on my mind today, but it
That
seems
in Rome.
yeah. What was their secret police called? The SPQR guys.
Uh, so as long as we're on the lines of another organization outside of our former employer, but also under the umbrella of the Department of Justice, we'll go to the ATF and ping pong back to fear, completely just unfounded fear, because the ATF, I guess, in actuality, polices things that are all completely legal. I mean, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms are all legal. I mean, there's restrictions, but it's kind of tough to square that circle of why you should exist, particularly when your entire reputation is the fact that you screwed up on Randy Weaver and entrapped a dude. But now there's been talk about actually getting rid of the ATF. So the ATF chief, he warns that the agency cuts could result in dire consequences. People will die, Garrett, if we don't have an
Okay,
ATF.
sure.
His name is Stephen Dettelbach. Diddlebach? I don't know. And I disavow the name Stephen because his has a V. Mine is PH, which indicates royalty. So he's
Yes.
the director of the ATF, and he is warning that the incoming administration has the agency in its sights. Quote, in the assassination attempt on President Trump, ATF identified the shooter in that case in under 30 minutes. I guess they had no other way to do that other than by doing an I guess arguably illegal gun trace since there's not supposed to be a registry. He says the ATF is navigating a wave of gun dangers, including ghost guns. Again, back to the fear.
Dun, dun,
One of
dun.
which was used in the killing of United Healthcare CEO in New York City, which I thought was a good thing from the communists, right? They
Yeah,
like that guy, Luigi.
and they
Just
caught him right away. So what does the ghost gun have anything to do with it?
Just days ago, ATF agents were among the first on the scene to help track the weapons and explosives used in New Orleans truck attack, which killed 14 people, and the Tesla Cybertruck bombing in Las Vegas. So they were there. Just they were there. So that's why we need them. So they can just be there because
Because
people need jobs, right?
yes, that's it. That's government for you. This is the point your government has gotten to. Just exist to take care of people. Like, yeah, we've got our heavy duty welfare programs that some people can use, well, lots of people, but we also have government jobs. And man, if you can get a government job, well, we'll really take care of you because everybody will think you're doing work on behalf of the nation and you'll get a paycheck and it'll be all good. And I've mentioned before how I worked with ATF a little bit on a case, and I found myself thinking often, why this is a gun case. That's what this is. So why am I just consulting with the ATF? Why aren't they working this case? And they'd say, well, the ideology. And then of course our FBI minders would say, well, we can't give the case because we got to have cases. Well, what if the cases aren't ones we should have because they're drugs, so they should go to DEA, or they're guns, so they should go to ATF? Or how about you abolish both of them? I'm sure you were tracking the multitudinal examples of DEA Fourth Amendment violations in airports over recent years that they finally abolished because enough people spoke up and said, "What are you doing? That sounds like a Fourth Amendment violation." And so they stopped their sketchy practice of just trying to consent search people who were getting on an airplane. Why were they doing that anyways? Why don't you actually go catch, drug lords? But then the ATF. Well, when was the last time you heard of an ATF case where you thought, "Damn, if it wasn't for the ATF, we'd really been screwed on that one"? I've never heard of a case like that. So why do they exist?
And look, I think Lauren Boebert has put out, it's red meat. It's never going to happen. Oh, I'm going to get rid of the ATF, right?
Yeah, not gonna.
But the actual proposal was to
Wait a
cut their
second.
fund.
So she's good for something besides getting kicked out of a movie theater while she's making out with her boyfriend because she left her family. Who
But I
knew?
mean, she's
How
like
about that?
Luna, right? They're like kind of mildly hot, so we have to have them. Anyway, the proposal that's been put out there, according to that article by CBS, was $188 million in funding cuts. out of a $1.6 billion budget. So you'd go from 1.6 to 1.4. So then you'd have less people that are just
Yeah,
able to show up.
dude, that's okay. That's just a one, like you said, it's not going to happen anyways. Two, even if it did, nobody would notice because that's
And look, if we
literally
did
nothing.
ATF, then there could be more Luigi Mangionis out there because the ATF did such a good job
Yeah,
on not stopping him that we better make sure that we have them to continue not stopping them. But people need to just be there after.
dude, it's such a farce, man. Because take that the Luigi Mangione case. ATF, where were you? Because you say, "Oh, ghost guns, ghost guns." Well, why didn't you stop that then? Or because it's just like the FBI. I saw this clip Mike Benz put out last night. It was a clip from a documentary about Whitey Bulger and how even an FBI SAC said we should probably look at this guy as a target. And they didn't. They just kept him as a source. They kept him protected. And was that good for them? Sure, because they were stopping some crime while Whitey Bulger was growing his criminal enterprise. But this is the thing. It's the same in the ATF as the FBI. They're not stopping any legitimate I shouldn't say any. They are rarely stopping legitimate crimes unless they have a source embedded into it somehow, unless a source brings them the information, unless there's a UCE or OCE involved. There other than that, it's rare in my experience, and I think even historically, if you look, it's rare that they're stopping something all on their own. So what do we need them for at all?
Again, it's just the fear, the fear they think that they can put out there, and people who are regularly consuming CBS News without a skeptical eye, they're thinking, well, if we don't have an ATF, then we'll have another New Orleans attack, which again, they've never connected the dots. They didn't stop it to begin with.
Right,
So
right.
really, if that's what your hope is, it's not really achievable. Let's go. I got two stories for Joe Biden.
Joe
Guess what, by
Biden.
the way, who is doing things, or at least his puppeteer handling the marionette wires is doing things in the closing days here in the last week and a half. He's just going full on despot at this point, or at least his administration is, with some things that impact you directly, and probably you directly in Wisconsin more than me.
Oh no.
And then also all of us when it comes to natural resources and energy in particular. So the first one, water heaters. So the gas stoves were a problem, and I think we fought that one off. But the whack-a-mole returns, and that this one, it comes from the Washington Free Beacon. Biden is banning scores of natural gas water heaters, driving up prices, of course, because of the environment. That's what we need to have, right? Biden administration finalized climate regulations to ban most natural gas-powered instantaneous water heaters, a move that critics say will drive up costs for consumers. Overall, under the regulation, 40% of new tankless water heaters available in the US today will be taken off the market by 2029.
40%.
Consumers will pay about $450 more on average when purchasing a new water heater, which ain't cheap.
No.
So we're getting
Okay.
that.
Here's my question. Why actually, let me back up. Is Donald Trump going to be able to just reverse something like this with the stroke of a pen, like Joe Biden is instilling with the stroke of a pen? I don't even
Some
know.
of them, yes. I believe with the water heater, yes, but not with the offshore drilling, which is the next piece I have.
Oh,
From Newsweek, I've got this one, it's been all over. So look, Biden stops offshore drilling. He was just
so
2
he's
weeks remaining of his
okay.
presidency.
That's what I was going to ask. He's doing this. This isn't something he did 6 months ago, and it's coming to
Yeah.
fruition. He's doing it now.
No, this is, why there needs to be a serious conversation about the transition period.
Yeah.
Needs to be drastically scaled down, because there used to be like a Democrat Party in the 90s that passed a crime bill, so they weren't that far apart. You
Right.
just you get your guys squared away, and then get them ready, and you need that transition period. But now it's just the evicted tenant who's going to burn down the house on the way out, right?
Mhm.
So this one is actually really bad for all of us. So Biden, with just 2 weeks remaining, said that he was invoking authority under the Federal Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act. Your government's too big, folks.
Yes. I
To
mean,
safeguard coastal waters along the east and west coasts. the eastern Gulf of America, and parts of Alaska's northern Bering Sea from future oil and natural gas leasing. So you think, well, he's just stroke of a pen, so it could just be undone. No, the actions protect more than 625 million acres of federal waters could be difficult for Trump to remove, as they would require an act of Congress to repeal. So the law says he can restrict it, but the law doesn't spell out that a future president can't undo that. You can't unring the bell according to that law, which again, this is why Democrats get elected to do something,
Right.
Republicans get elected to be something, and they're just going to say, our hands are tied. I guess you're just going to have to vote us in the midterms. Maybe we'll
Mhm.
get to a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate so we can undo that. I mean, I'm all for the president coming in and just saying, let's find out.
Yep.
We're just going to open that back up, and the
Yep.
Supreme Court says something. Where's their army to stop it?
Right. Right. And I think I hate to say it, but that's where we're at. Go ahead and stop me. That or what? Some PETA-esque group is gonna what sue? Go ahead. Go ahead. I mean, whatever. Because Joe Biden he's got mashed potatoes for a brain. He doesn't know what he's signing. I would also like to know, because you go out into the world and you encounter people. I imagine that roughly half of the people I encounter don't agree with me politically.
Do they buy gas?
Right. Do they cook food? Do they need hot water for taking a shower, for doing their laundry, for giving their children a bath, for all sorts of reasons? Who is actually okay with the rising costs of a water heater? 40%, a 40% increase when prices of everything is already going up. And then on top of it, you're going to quote unquote protect 625 million acres of federal waterways at the detriment of us. I'm not saying go into these areas and just decimate the land. I'm pretty sure we're at a point, because I've seen the pipeline. I've seen it, how it runs from Alaska when I lived up there. And it's not like oil is pouring all over the moose and destroying the habitat and everything like that. Does it have some negligible, issue in certain areas? Yeah, maybe. But is it worth it for our nation to thrive? I would say yes. And nobody's advocating for doing these things unwisely. The only unwise thing here is 2 weeks left, sign the bill just to make it that much more difficult for the next guy. That's that's about as anti-American as it gets. But it's business as usual for the woke communists in the Democratic Party, because that's the other piece. It's not Joe Biden. So who is it? Who is it that are writing these bills, giving these ideas, telling him to sign this, and then it's getting to his desk or his ice cream cart or whatever, and he's signing it off on it. I'm furious, Steve.
Well, I'm gonna got one more because we have to gin up the fear/fury and spin it all into something that's going to control you. And this one is why coronavirus is actually a good thing. So after we
Oh,
destroyed the global economy and had untold numbers of jobs lost and lives destroyed and people who died from the remedies, not just the chest cold, which was mostly limited to people who die of bird flu, right? People in poor health. Uh,
exactly.
Reporting from the conservative news source, Fox News, COVID-19 virus could attack cancer cells and shrink tumors. Thank you, Wuhan. You saved it. You cured cancer. Joe Biden got it done. He cured cancer. There's a new study suggesting COVID-19 could attack cancer cells. The study was published in the Journal of Clinical Investigations, found that the COVID infection was linked to cancer regression, which could serve as a foundation for new cancer treatments in the future. The effect was activated by severe COVID-19. The researchers found was specifically seen to be effective against melanoma, lung cancer, breast cancer, and colon cancer. And here's the kicker, Garrett. Studies have shown that the COVID-19 vaccine could have the same effects.
Oh, that's what it is. So I was thinking, oh, this is just going to open the door for them to do more
Gain of function.
gain of function research.
No,
And
it's jab it away, man.
yes, but no, yeah, it's just get your COVID-19 vaccine because it just won't stop the lowercase c COVID. It'll stop the uppercase C cancer.
The turbo cancers that the vaccine causes will be diminished slightly later on when you contract coronavirus because it doesn't stop you from getting it. Do you see? We closed the loop on it. Perfect.
That's Steve. It always comes back to COVID, doesn't it? I know we say that a lot here, but it's the truth. Look at this. Now they're just jamming this down your throat. Oh, don't worry. Just get your booster. Just get your next booster. Don't worry. In the long run, it's going to be good for you. Because what is this? This is money again. This is Nancy Pelosi getting a 53% bump in her stock trades over the year.
I thought it was 200%, but
Is it?
You're more conservative than me.
I thought I saw it on what's that Twitter handle? It's like Nancy Pelosi's
Stock tracker,
stock tracker, something like that. I thought maybe it was higher. My brain doesn't function like it used to. Maybe we need gain of function research for that. I don't know, but it's so they can make more money off the pharmaceuticals. So the pharmaceuticals companies can just keep pushing the same mRNA technology that really isn't proven for vaccines or that it's even good for healthy humans. But hey, just keep doing it because it pays the bills and it enriches, it lines the pockets. It's, we've talked about the military industrial complex before. The pharmaceutical industrial complex, there's so many of these industrial complexes at this point. We got to come up with a catch-all name or flag. We could use the LGBTQ plus IA kamikaze flag and just write on each color: military industrial complex, intelligence industrial
Skull and
complex.
crossbones. Skull and crossbones. All right, Garrett, I got a palate cleanse today about parenthood, which I think you'll appreciate. But as is the tradition, what are your biblical worldview thoughts for us?
I like it. We're going to Micah 6:8. I drummed this up last night because of something I saw on X from another guy who has a somewhat similar biblical worldview, and it made me think of this verse, Isaiah 6, verse 8, which says, "He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly with your God." And the piece that really stood out to me last night and why I brought it today, I decided to just use this today because of the abortion mill video. Because this verse says, "What does the Lord require of you but to do justice?" It is a requirement to do justice. And I think a lot of people get it wrong. You mentioned the turn the other cheek earlier and how that is one of the most thrown out but yet misinterpreted pieces of scripture out there. And I think that's true. And a lot of the verses that are just, oh, just be loving, turn the other cheek. Don't. Yes, there's application for those things, but people forget about God. As loving as God is, He's also a just God, a righteous God. And it doesn't just mean, oh, you can do whatever you want to whoever you want, because if they're a good Christian, they're going to turn the other cheek. No, because we're also required to do justice. And I just think of those cops arresting that guy for disorderly conduct. That was not a cop doing justice, which is their divine mandate. It's their ordinance from God, is to literally do justice. That's the position they're put in, to do justice, and they don't. And when you have law enforcement especially, but when you have government that does not do justice, you have tyranny. And that's why when resistance to tyranny is obedience to God, because God does not ordain tyranny. He ordains a government that's supposed to do the right thing for the right reason in the right way, which includes doing justice, like it says there in Micah 6:8.
All right, and we're talking about doing the right thing. You should definitely be fruitful and multiply and have kids, even if it costs you your wardrobe, which is the subject matter of today's palate cleanse. Let's give this one a play.
My wife and I were married for 2 months when we decided we were going to have children, because she was pregnant. When your wife tells you she's pregnant, your life is over. Take a good look at the clothes you're wearing, as you will be wearing them for a long time. Your kids will look hip and cool as you fall farther out of fashion. People make fun of dads and how we dress, a white t-shirt, Bermuda shorts, black socks with the sandals. We don't dress that way because we're stupid. We dress that way because that's all we've got left. Now, from what I see up front here, we've got quite a few good dads in the theater.
Well, he's doing the best he can to be a good dad, as am I tonight. Programming note, guys, tonight I'm going down to Miami to watch the Orange Bowl with my dad, who
Sweet.
still dresses in the same thing he's always. I wear the same thing I am, and I'm bringing my son. 3 generations of friend men going to the Orange Bowl. Go Irish, beat Nittany Lions. Even if you're a Penn State fan, but you're an AMRAD, you got to root for my boys tonight. So that'll do it for us today. We'll see you back here Saturday, 10:30. Appreciate it, guys. As always, if you haven't already, make sure that you smash the thumbs up, give us a follow, and we'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to the voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.